Hello fellow seekers and collectors, I am the Cinema Seeker, and today I am reviewing Birds of Prey.
Are we ready? You blow up fuse, the devil cuts loose. So what's the use? Woo!
Turn it up!
Sky kicks in, devil cuts loose. Blow your fuse. When you fall in love. Oh shit, is that a hyena in a bathtub?
I named him Bruce after that hunky Wayne guy.
Another chapter in the line of DCEU movies, this tells the story of Harley Quinn and her breakup with the Joker. Now that she no longer has the Joker, all of Gotham is out together, and there's some characters that deal with Birds of Prey. Okay, right off the bat, is this movie good? Kind of, but at the same time, not really. Okay, what works about the movie? Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is fantastic. She was the highlight of Suicide Squad, and she pulls it off again. You can tell she really has a passion for the character, and she loves playing her, and that's on full display in this film. She brings a level of fun to the character, and I'm always impressed whenever she actually plays this character, because she nails her mannerisms, her voice, and everything. And in fact, I would honestly even say this one is better than Suicide Squad in terms of her performance, because she actually is very fun with this one. And not to mention, her accent is a lot more consistent, because one kind of thing that was noticeable about Suicide Squad was sometimes her accent looked like it slipped a bit in certain areas of the film, and that was kind of weird at times. The actors actually do a really good job in this movie. A standout that I actually didn't expect was Rosie Perez as Renee Montoya. She was really good with the role. I did not expect this, because I actually wasn't that hyped about her casting when I first heard that this character was actually going to be in the movie. I was very confused as to why they chose this actress, but in all honesty, I actually have to say she did a great job. As I mentioned before, she really did give a certain element. It's kind of hard to describe a little bit, but she really did capture kind of this pulp-ish type of crime detective that they were going for in the film, because there's many times where characters very much make reference to the type of dialogue she has and some of the lines she says, and they very much kind of comment in a joking manner about it being very old-fashioned, which kind of makes me think maybe they are setting her up for the question already, but I don't know if that will ever happen. If so, I'm glad that she's now in this role, because she really did a good job in the role, but not to mention she really showed that she can kick ass sometimes in some of the fight scenes, which I did not expect. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress is also really good. She actually was a favorite of mine. She was a huge standout in this film. Really did love her character in terms of how badass she was. She was even really just fun as a character. Ewan McGregor is actually really fun as Black Mask. Of course, he's such a phenomenal actor, so this is definitely in his list of best performances, because he truly does have fun with the character, and he gives very much a sleaziness and a very gangster vibe to it, but very much a comic book villain type of gangster. And I really did enjoy that. And again, he gets a lot of good lines. He gets some pretty funny moments too. He also has some pretty dark and pretty frightening parts. I mean, there's one part that I think is already now being considered controversial, essentially, and very much makes use of that R rating. And he did a phenomenal job with it, but he's just a phenomenal actor. Another thing that does really work is the action. In fact, I would honestly say this is the best aspect of the film. The action is very well shot. There's no shaky cam bullshit. It really does. It makes you actually see the action, whereas a lot of films kind of in the early 2010s really didn't want you to see action. It was so obvious that these were actors who were not trained, did not have any fighting experience, so they always filmed it to the point where you could barely see the actual scene itself, and that was absolutely a horrible time for action films. But I can say everything about this movie is definitely well shot. There's a lot of good camera angles, a lot of good framing, and they definitely knew how to shoot a movie. This is not like Suicide Squad, where a lot of scenes just felt like they were either too dark or were so incomprehensible that at times they were very unenjoyable to watch. So I can definitely give a lot of credit that this film definitely improved upon that aspect of this side of the DCEU. I'll say, however, that booby trap scene was the only one that felt a bit strange and it felt a bit off. They kind of used a bit of a continuous shot, like a continuing shot, like there's no edits in it. And while I'm usually happy with like long continuous shots, tracking shots, or anything like that really doesn't require any edits, unfortunately in this one it doesn't really work that much. In fact, it kind of felt like some of those like overly used one shot fight scenes in the Arrow TV series. And that at that moment, I damn near felt like I was watching a CW series. No Jared Leto Joker. As you've seen in the ads, he is completely gone. That's great, because his version of the Joker is...
It's my crotch. Oh, the only, the infamous Harley Quinn. Handsome hunka hunka. You want no beef? You don't want no beef? You don't want no beef?
You don't like me?
I'm an idea. State of mind. Do it!
The most embarrassing thing imaginable. Overall, there is a lot to like about the film. However, there is a lot to not like as well. First thing is, this is not a Birds of Prey movie. This is a Harley Quinn movie that just so happens to feature the Birds of Prey. They're just tourists in this story, essentially. And in fact, even the title, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, long-ass title, it really is very misleading, actually, because the "and" part makes it seem like that Harley Quinn's parts are not going to be the big focus, that it's going to be the actual Birds of Prey. It just so happens to feature Harley Quinn as maybe like kind of a anti-hero antagonist sort of role. This is essentially her movie that just so happens to introduce the Birds of Prey. That's especially the big problem, is it many ways lies to you. If you're a huge Birds of Prey fan, you are going to be very disappointed in this film, because a lot of these characters barely get any screen time when it comes to wanting to characterize themselves. A good majority of the screen time is taken up either by Harley, Cassandra Cain, Renee Montoya, and Black Canary, and even then, those other two characters at times feel like they're being put to the side. As much as I did enjoy this version of Black Canary, I will admit to you, I prefer Katie Cassidy's version on the Arrow series. A lot of it really is because we got more character development in that one. In fact, we got two versions of Dinah Lance. We had the main Earth one, and then we had Earth 2 Black Canary, which of course was more like the comic books, but unfortunately they introduced it too late into the series. But with this one, they definitely have more of a comic book accurate in terms of her being a metahuman and that aspect, but I just feel like this one, because she was such a side character, she didn't have enough time to shine. And hopefully, maybe in the future, she will get more development, but unfortunately, in this one, it's so hard to very much say, oh, right, she's my favorite out of all of them, because even her moments where she had time to shine wasn't as impressive as the way the Arrow series did. Remember how I said that Huntress was my favorite? Yeah, she's barely in the movie. Just like in the ads, if you notice, Huntress is kind of downplayed in the ads at times. Yeah, that's because she's barely in the movie. So this is definitely one where if you're a huge Huntress fan, if you're a comic book fan who loves that character, you are going to be very disappointed because she's barely in the film. Even though she is a highlight of the film, unfortunately she doesn't have that much screen time. And it's weird because at times she's also kind of a comic relief character, which is weird because she's definitely more of a serious character. I'm not saying that Huntress doesn't have her funny moments in the comics, but it definitely has more of a serious vibe. I will say, though, that even though despite her getting the shaft a bit in this film, I honestly prefer this version of Huntress than the one they did in Arrow, because that one I genuinely forgot about already. In fact, I have a very hard time remembering the actress's face. The only thing I remember was she was hunting down the gangsters, and she dated Oliver. That was literally it. That's all I remember from the series of Huntress. Another big issue with the characters, I would definitely say, is Victor Zsasz. I do not like his portrayal in this movie. It feels like the Gotham version of Zsasz, but not as entertaining. And that's a big problem. Also, his character design is just terrible. It's so generic and uninspired. He's such a generic gangster that it really does make you think it's another character, but no, it's Victor Zsasz, the serial killer of the DC universe. They keep that aspect of him, marking his body for every kill, but that's just kind of a general, that carries on with every adaptation. That has to be in there, or else you're not adapting Victor Zsasz. But the problem is that because he's such a... I understand that his character doesn't exactly lean itself to the most interesting stories, but at the same time, that's why he's not always the main central focus of a story. He's usually a side character, or another person for either Batman or another superhero to just beat up and then toss him aside. But the issue is that because he kind of has that level of open availability, everybody is trying to do something different. And while that is honorable, that sometimes leads to very bad adaptations, or in the case of Birds of Prey, that just leads to a character that makes me think I'm not watching a proper version of a character that I've known for a very long time. Especially when you compare to the video games that don't do too bad of a job at characterizing him. But oh well. I think the biggest problem with this film is how it's presented. One major issue is this film at times feels like it's just trying to take many elements from the Deadpool film, from the very first one. If you have seen the movie, you probably will understand what I'm talking about. I understand that in the comics, Harley Quinn has become somewhat of the DC equivalent to Deadpool, even though many times they have tried to have their own version of it, matching the character a little bit, but most fans would ultimately tell you that Harley Quinn is pretty much just the female version of Deadpool. But in this film, they really do have the Deadpool comparisons because there's so many elements while watching that did remind me of the first film, especially in its structure as a film. I don't want to give too much of the film away, especially in its structure, but if you have seen the film or are going to see it, just know that if you have seen the first Deadpool movie and you're wondering why this feels so familiar while watching, that's why. I will say it's more visually interesting than Deadpool 1. Deadpool 1's visuals are not the most interesting out of all of them. It's still a fantastic film, but I will say the color palette for that film wasn't exactly remarkable. It was very bland, a lot of grays, a lot of very just underwhelming colors, aside from Deadpool's suit and an occasional blue hue in certain elements of the scenes, but aside from that, it wasn't that spectacular. In this film, it is, but unfortunately, in its structure, it really does wear its inspirations on its sleeve, essentially. And I think we're getting to that point where now we're starting to see the Deadpool films influence now other films, not just comic books, but I bet you anything eventually it's gonna hit other films as well that are not comic book based. Another big issue as well, throughout the film, it looks like they're trying to distance themselves from the first Suicide Squad movie. Understandably, because that film is not very good, but at the same time, it tries distancing itself from it. At the same time, it also seems to embrace certain elements, and it seems like it's the elements that were not the greatest. For example, hey, remember those colorful intros in the last movie? You know, the ones that took you out from the film?
Yay, Deadshot. Hey.
Yeah, they're still in here. They're still in the film. Granted, it's not as obnoxious, but it's still in here. And again, that proves my point of why is it that in certain elements they're trying to distance themselves? Of course, the most obvious being Jared Leto's Joker, but I think we're all completely fine with that. But in certain elements too, it seems like they continued that part of it. I understand that I guess this side of the DCU, they're trying to have that type of editing and that type of style. I will say the editing is better in this film than Suicide Squad, because it feels like actual humans edited this film and not monkeys. But in this film, when it comes to like the very, like every time a character gets introduced, their name immediately appears in colorful text, and then they'll get like sometimes stats, like it's a comic book. And I get that, and I guess that's what they're trying to go for, is the idea that it's like a comic book come to life in a movie. However, you can achieve that style, but it can also date the film, and it doesn't always work. Overall, it's not bad. There's a lot to like about it. And hey, more Harley Quinn, that's perfectly fine for me. I'm happy to have more Harley. But unfortunately, there is a lot of problems with the film, and there's still a lot of changes to be made to this aspect of the DCEU, especially if they want it to be as successful as Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam. Those films, in all honesty, are far better. And I'm already seeing articles propping this movie up as like the best DCEU film. What? That genuinely does not register to my brain, in all honesty. Because, again, as the three movies I just mentioned are far better than this one. Again, I'm not saying that you need to avoid this movie, but there are going to be some elements that are probably going to keep you from wanting to shell out a movie ticket and may just say, I'll wait for home release. So if you like this type of style, go for it. If you don't, and really don't like the aspect of Harley Quinn essentially hijacking a Birds of Prey film, probably just best to wait for a rental. But that's going to be it for the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next video. I am currently trying to work on a Terminator Dark Fate review, but like I said, I have school right now, so that's probably it's gonna be quite a bit, because it's gonna be a huge project. It's on home release, and that will require me getting a lot of footage and essentially me angrily talking about why I hate this film and why I feel like the Terminator franchise needs to end, and why why essentially the sequels have been such a huge failure. So that's kind of the project I'm working on, and of course, any films that I'm interested in seeing, I will definitely review. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my videos and want to keep updated with what I'm reviewing. So I'll see you guys next time.